Perfect. Moving right along to our 10 a.m. session. This session is going to be a panel. We're going to have a nice little AT chat with the specialists in the industry. So we'll be highlighting our panelists here. And I think I'll go around and let them introduce themselves instead of me trying to introduce everyone and pronounce everyone's Irish name, which I am not great at. So we're just going to send you around town and let everyone introduce themselves. So I might start off with Carol, you're first on my screen here. So just let us know who you are, what institute you're coming from, and maybe how you got into AT. Just keeping in mind that there's quite a few of us, so we'll try to kind of keep it compact and short. So go ahead, Carol, whenever you're ready.
Hi there, everybody. Carol Neelan is my name. I am known as the Active Inclusion Officer for the Cork ETB. And as far as your first question really attached to who I am and where I come from, I got into all of this in a big way in about 2015, 2016, working in one of the PLC colleges in Cork as a teacher. But I started working in a learner support or study hub. This was an old secondary school that had been turned into a PLC college. We had an old library. We turned that into a study hub where students could come for help for anything from how to copy something onto a memory stick to how to create a table of contents in a document that they had to put together. So that went then from there up to Liz Moynihan, who's now the principal there, created an active inclusion network where a group of us started to standardize all of the services and facilities for students with extra needs. And we went from there to now, where I spend a lot of my time now going around our 42 and sometimes 72 centres, as in including secondary school in there as well, doing assessments for students and deciding what is the best fit for them, given that they are now diagnosed as dyslexic or ADHD or whatever it is.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carol. Moving right along, we'll go to Sylvia, who's next on my screen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sylvia Nutley. I work at the University of Galway as an Assistive Technology Officer. I'm part of the Disability Support Team, which is part of the Access team. So how I got into AT, I suppose I have a primary degree in business and IT, and I have a master's in economics, information and library studies. I've been in the university for over 20 years. So in my previous roles in the university, I was exposed to the amazing tools that AT had to offer, and I came basically intrigued by assistive technology and the powerful impact it had on students' independence. So I started completing various courses in disabilities and in the AT field. So in 2015, I joined the Disability Support Services as an Assistive Technology Officer. And I've been there now for over 9 years, ensuring students have the necessary tools and resources to succeed academically.
Perfect. Yeah, kind of similar story where you just kind of realize what's available and kind of get intrigued by it and then go down that path.
Exactly.
What about you, Patrick? Do you have a similar story?
Not exactly. I haven't sort of been in the higher ed space that long. Like fair play to Sylvia. Like would love to sort of pick her brain and stuff someday. But I'm only sort of in this sort of space maybe about 3 years. So I did sort of a languages politics degree in UL, European Studies, and then I was living in Madrid for a couple of years where I was like teaching. I was like an English language assistant basically, and then I came back. And I kind of worked in Virgin Media and then I started in TUS as an education technologist, so kind of specifically around like universal design, and so I helped kind of draft policy around like universal design, and then started kind of open my eyes in terms of assistive technology, accessibility, and kind of since last February I'm sort of an assistant lecturer in universal design and do a lot of stuff around like staff training. I kind of have like a Venn diagram of universal design, accessibility and education technology, education sort of assistive technology, and those kind of three things. Like that's kind of where that's kind of what I do, and I do a lot of like training and policy and different things. So but yeah, I don't know, I find it very interesting, accessibility, especially technology, and how it's a little bit, to me, accessibility is a little bit like seeing the Matrix. Like once you kind of realize, oh, like this is what people have to do and you have to make it accessible, it's kind of hard to unsee it after that, and you're always kind of looking at stuff, trying to make it better. But yeah, that's kind of my background anyway.
Perfect. Thanks, Patrick. I get it. Yeah, it's kind of life-changing once you figure out what you've been missing and what you can do.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll hand you over to William now. What's your story, William?
Hi, yeah. So I'm William Nolan. I work in the University of Limerick. I'm an educational technologist for kind of specializing in assistive technology. I'm part of the Educational Assistive Technology Centre here, so we're kind of a spin-off of our disability services. We work primarily with students registered with that service to give them similar to what Sylvia was saying, kind of the tools and training they need around assistive technology. And then we also kind of work on more kind of inclusive projects, kind of under that whole umbrella of universal design for learning, all that sort of stuff. Sorry, apologies. I'm getting a Teams call at the same time as this, which isn't ideal. So sorry, no, it's ringing in my head and I can't stop it. Sorry. So yeah, so how I got into this was I've been an AT user myself all my life, really, because I've been visually impaired since birth. So I have been using assistive technology since basically as long as I can remember, back to kind of dark days of using early versions of Supernova Magnifier, which I still get flashbacks about. And then I came to UL in about 2010 to study kind of a computer science degree, and then I just kind of hung around until eventually they started saying, "Well, you've been here long enough. We may as well start paying you to be here." So I just kind of landed in here and have been working in this role for coming up on 3 years now. So yeah.
Perfect, William. It's kind of a natural position for you, almost like you're destined to be there almost.
I like to think so anyway.
Yeah, perfect. And then our last panelist is Tom. I'm not sure if you're around, Tom. We haven't been able to find you in the group. Are you there, Tom? I think he might just be on mute, so we'll maybe have a work in the background trying to reach him while we move on to our first question, which is kind of around what you've enjoyed in your role, or kind of what's been your favorite part of working AT, and kind of how has it shaped your life. So might start with Patrick this time. What's kind of been your favorite part of working in the AT field?
I guess sort of it is kind of interesting. It's sometimes a bit daunting in terms of like whenever I'm trying to explain like to people, I think you should always be able to explain what your job is. And it's kind of difficult in our space because there's a lot of elements to it. You should always try and explain it in 30 seconds. And the best format I found is it's as opposite to the Leaving Cert as is humanly possible. And I think that, like, especially around AT and accessibility, just how like little tweaks just make things easier for everyone. That's the big thing that I'm always kind of pushing. I guess you're always kind of pushing against like this whole idea of like universal design and accessibility is kind of like, you're always pushing against the idea that it's like, oh, it's for people with disabilities and no one else. And you're always kind of trying to push back against that and sort of embed the idea that like, no, it helps everyone. Like this is like the automatic little, the automatic door little for everyone. Like it helps everyone if you got like two big heavy bags of shopping and it helps the same with like someone in a wheelchair or someone like that. And just when you can like get people to introduce sort of like little tweaks and changes, like I did a session around the like universal design last year with just some fourth year business students, kind of a drop-in session, and I was talking about, sort of little tweaks, like maybe if someone had like a list of like a glossary of like different things, and like then we talked about like stuff like immersive reader and like even like really, really simple stuff that we would be like, oh yeah, like that's easy peasy stuff. Like people don't know that. And sometimes I guess like trying to get as much in and kind of to open as many people up to that world is it's really empowering, like kind of once they kind of realize what's there, but then also sort of the curse of knowledge. Once you kind of realize what's there, then you kind of realize what's lacking as well. It's sort of, I always find it like a really tricky mix.
Yeah, I get that. And we find that a lot at Ahead too. We often think, since we know technology, we just kind of think everyone knows about it. And a lot of times it's kind of stepping back and realizing that it's not kind of common knowledge a lot of times. So
Yeah.
thanks, Patrick. Might go to Sylvia next. What's been your favorite part of working in AT?
I suppose I find it's the transformative impact it has on students' lives, providing the tools, training they need to overcome the challenges, and seeing them succeed academically is really rewarding them, witnessing them progress and knowing that you have contributed to their journey, and witnessing them, seeing them achieve, graduate, getting their jobs, like it inspires you every day. Like, like when you meet a student that has never seen the blackboard, like I met a PhD student that had gone through all of national school, secondary school, their masters. They had 2 masters and they had never seen the blackboard or the whiteboard. It's amazing. Little things like that, and all I needed was a little device. There's so many devices and technologies out there that we can help students to succeed. It's and assistive technology, it's ever changing, it's constantly evolving. It's a thrilling time. We're in a thrilling time in AT, like it's exciting.
Yeah.
Like it's so rewarding. Like the students we meet in first year, they're all so nervous coming in, and the student we see that's graduating, like they're so confident. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, definitely rewarding field, and probably, yeah, makes you feel good knowing that you've helped contribute to that. So
Exactly, yeah.
very
You're
good.
exhausted, but yeah.
I get it, yeah. And Carol, what about you?
I'd have to agree. I mean, my job, as the other 2 people have just said, is kind of bridging a link between the people higher up that have the policies and the funding and all of that to support this, and then the people on the ground who are telling us what they need. So I suppose my favorite take home from this, ETBs are different to universities in that we have more of a Heinz variety of diversity of need, and we have a higher ratio of learners that need more hand holding. And as Donald said in the previous talk, we have an awful lot more learners who it might be just that little bridge too far to be doing things like read and write gold with them. They want something simple, easy on their phone. Give me an app. I know how to use my phone, and I don't want to be using any more things. You've already tried to introduce Moodle to me, and Office 365 might or might not be new to them, but it doesn't break them. But my biggest take home this year, because I work once a week in Cork Prison, and a lot of the ETBs have learners that are in education units in the prisons. And while one of my main jobs has been managing the FSD funds, or the Learner Support Framework funds for students throughout FET, in the prison, there are different rules and regulations for access to these things. So I have one man who we assessed, and he now has a blue scanning pen. So this is your white one that people are probably familiar with all over, the orange ones that are used for state exams. There are blue ones devised specifically for people who are incarcerated. So there's no Wi-Fi connection. So there's no real memory storage on them. And I have a man in Cork Prison who is a Kerry man who came back shaking my hand about 10 times, crying nearly, almost, saying, he's a Kerry man. Now he can get the Kerry newspaper and he can read by himself. He's allowed the earphones. He's not allowed the charger because it's a choking hazard, but he can come to the school and get that charged. But then we have another guy who's doing a university course, and he's dyslexic, and speech to text software isn't allowed for these. So trying to find workarounds, it keeps me alive. I'm a serial learner. Okay, or yesterday, and that'll be my last anecdote, I was assessing 2 ladies in a unit, but one of them, if you had her life story, you could write a best-selling book. And I said to her, okay, we're here for your assessment. What is it that you really, really find difficult? She said, Cara, spelling. I'm absolutely rubbish at spelling. And I said, okay, so how does that affect you here in your centre? well, that's all right. I'll sit next to, let's call her Mary. I'll sit next to Mary and she'll tell me the spelling. So I look into her book and I can find the spellings. And I said, and what about anywhere else? Oh, sure, I'm fine at home. I just ask Alexa, and Alexa will spell the words for me. So, you know, the students, as you've said before, I think it was Donald and Michelle were saying, they are very creative, but learning from them is brilliant for me because I'm like halfway between the two, and learning from my colleagues like Farad, who's one of our Tutel guys. They're in Groningen all this week with AT stuff, and he was telling me a lot about AI and what he's doing with our teachers with AI. And a colleague, Anne Burns, who's using virtual reality stuff and augmented reality. You know, I have the best job because I'm learning from the guys on the top for what's coming down and what we can bring to the people. And I'm learning from the guys on the bottom who tell me what's really, really needed. Sorry, my answer was too long.
No, don't be sorry. It's all interesting. And I love kind of the personal stories as well. And you're right, like we can learn from the students just as much as we can from the other side. So totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just on to William now, what's been your favorite part of working in the AT field?
Yeah, very similar to Sylvia and Carol. Like it's just the students. Like our end of semester exams finished just this Monday. So, and I've been working here now for like 2.5, coming up on 3 years. So at this point, we'll say the students I would class as my students, the ones that I would have started with, are starting to get to those final years and graduating. Like ones I would have met when they were in second year are now starting to graduate. So like a lot of my time last week was just saying goodbye to students and stuff at exams. During our exams, I tend to go up to our exam center just to be around. And I had to say to multiple students at a lot of times, I'm here for me because I know you're fine at this point. And it was basically just to have that interaction with them and just see, like as Sylvia mentioned, just how a student can go from being very nervous and unsure of themselves in those early years of college to being like completely chilled out and just rocking up to an exam and knowing that they have the supports there that they need. Like I randomly was waiting at a bus stop during the exams, and a student who graduated in December from her master's came up to me and just was telling me all about the new job she has and all this. And it was just, and she would have been one of our like high needs students, and just to see how happy and just, you know, has gone through the system, got the support she needed, and, you know, knew that we were there to support her all the way through, was just so rewarding. And like even during the exams, I had a student, again, another one of those, so he's in second year now, and he was like, coming up to his time going out in Erasmus and our like co-op placement, and he was very nervous about going in Erasmus and just like didn't know whether he was going to go or not, just for different factors. But just during the exams, I just checked in with him and just go, oh, are you planning on going? And he was like, no, I got it, and I'm definitely going to go. And I was saying to him in the room, I'm just so happy. Like I said to him, from a selfish point of view, I don't want you to go because I really like working with you, but at the same time, I just wanted to see you go out. And it was just like, you know, you'd be just trying to get out of the room before you start crying in front of the student, like, because you're just so happy for them that they're doing so well. And it's incredibly rewarding to see that. Like whenever you see a student just click with a piece of assistive technology and it just works for them, it makes such a difference to them. That's just, you know, you just leave work in the evening just like bouncing off the walls because it's just so amazingly rewarding.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, kind of similar stories for everyone, like making those connections and kind of being able to help students and then see them succeed is kind of the huge reward of the role. Totally understandable. Kind of moving on to question kind of just around trends or just around specific technologies that you might see. I just saw you sneeze, Patrick, so I won't call on you. I'll leave you out for a second. Might go to Sylvia. What are the technologies that you find are really popular right now, and kind of what do you imagine becoming more popular in the next few years?
I think as the last speakers were saying, I think we're relying a lot more in the inbuilt accessibilities, say like with Microsoft, relying say a lot more on Dictate, immersive readers, that kind of thing. For the students that don't need to fully rely on them just for a little bit day to day. Glean, I have to say, which is a note-taking software. So that records, we have over 400 users, and that I have to say that's a big hit on our campus. So that's a note-taking software that records the lecture, whether it's in person or online. And you give the students a transcription of it. They can add their PowerPoints to it. They can use it on their phone. They can use it on their computer. It's a web-based application. I have to say our students love that, and they can be used across the board. So it takes the stress out of taking notes. We are looking at a new one at the moment, Jamworks, and that has AI built into it, and that will actually produce notes for students as well. So we're hoping to implement that now next year. Grammarly as well is a big hit. I think everyone is familiar with Grammarly as well. We're still big fans of text help read and write. So for students that need kind of everything still read out loud to them, text help read and write is still very popular for us, because people still prefer the Myra voice and all the various, say, screen masking, the ruler, and the spell check is still better for students with dyslexia. We have Census Access on campus as well, which is for converting files into Braille, audio files, accessible PDFs. That's really popular as well. We still use Dragon on campus, but that's for more people that really need the advanced Dragon Dictate as well. Let me see what else. Boost as well, for people that like flashcards to learn. Is becoming very popular. It uses AI where students have their notes and it produces flashcards with it, and pops up questions, and they're given options to answer. Let me see.
That's lots, Sylvia, and
Yeah.
I'm fully conscious that people probably have similar answers to those.
Yeah,
as you
sorry.
kind of list. Oh, no, you're fine. I know there's a whole lot available though. Maybe William, are there any that kind of weren't covered, or what's been super popular where you are?
Yeah, no, like as Sylvia said at the start there, and as the previous speakers were saying, like we'd be seeing similar trends in terms of just the free, like a lot of students wanted to use the freer stuff. Immersive Reader is a big one here. When I do so we have Claro Read here, which is kind of another form of read and write. Whenever I do demos of that here, I start them with the Immersive Reader demonstration, and the amount of students who are just blown away because they've never seen it. Like if I show them on a website where it can just get rid of all the distractions and let you customize everything, like that can be just like a wow factor off the bat for them. Another like is on that train as well. I'm just like free, like I'm seeing very, very few people wanting the paid versions of like Zoom Text and JAWS. Now we haven't had that many vision impaired or blind students since I started, but the ones that I have all been pretty much happy enough to just use the built-in magnifier in Windows. The built-in magnifier in Windows is what I use now because it's so like it has pretty much the basic features that you need for just magnification and color inversion and that sort of stuff, which is fantastic because JAWS and Zoom Text are expensive, and if you don't need to buy them, and you can use it on every PC that you have, that's great. Another one that we would have that's been very popular is LightKey. So it's kind of a text prediction software. So if you know in like Outlook where it like predicts predicts what you want to write as you're writing it, well, LightKey is like that, except it's much more accurate, or it learns from you to predict more along the way you want to write. I've been able to use that with students who, in particular, a master's student who was studying Irish and was had like carpal tunnel, so she had a lot of difficulty typing. I was able to give her LightKey, switch it over to Irish. It helps predict her writing in Irish, and she basically said that that got her through writing her master's thesis. That one has been, we give it to, we don't give it to everyone, but to the people that we give it to, they speak very highly of it, and it could be, again, transformative in what they do. Yeah, so I think those would be the different ones. I think Sylvia covered a lot of them that we would use as well, but those would be kind of additional ones.
Perfect. Thanks, William. And I think I'm getting messages from the headquarters here that I think Tom has made it in. Are you there, Tom? Can you hear me? Tom. Well, we might go to Carol anyways and see if we can get Tom
Well,
during the next question.
It's kind of serendipitous, isn't it?
It is. In
a
a
colleague of
technology
hers-
event, it's bound to
That's
happen.
it. But a colleague of mine, Deirdre Madden, actually works with UCC. She is just one of the most amazing human beings I've ever come across vocation to this area. I put a link into the chat where Deirdre has made a collection of all sorts of free or easy, accessibly, maybe cheap options for different needs there. And between Deirdre's link and the AT Hive from Trevor that he made when he was part of AT, and I was delighted to get his notes on Compass the other day. I think we're set up for everything. Yes, there's always going to be unusual people with unusual needs who need very specific supports, but the elements that outside of what we can find in Office 365, our guy Farad is after putting a button into 365, so our guys can just press another little button and get straight into Moodle without having 2 usernames and 2 passwords. But outside of that, really, Deirdre Madden's link is probably one of the most significant that I find is successful in our centres. And there's something for everyone in the audience really in it. And I'm sure Tom, if he appears, will vouch for Deirdre and her wonderfulness.
Yeah. Perfect. And just on to Patrick, any technologies you'd like to mention?
We last year, or well, either earlier this year, I know it's like, I know we're June, but a little part of my brain still kind of half thinks it's 23. It's really weird. But we started working with, oh no, it was last year. We started working with Brickfield. So Gavin Hendrick, who I think, Ed and a lot of people might be familiar with. So Brickfield is basically sort of this accessibility suite, and basically what they do is they kind of just analyze everything in Moodle, and it kind of does a lot of like bug fixing in terms of accessibility issues in Moodle with PDFs and different things. And that's really, really helpful in a lot of ways. And sort of, it's nice kind of to go to like really time poor academics and support staff and librarians and stuff and be like, and they recognize it's important, but of course time, who has the time? I don't have the time, whatever. But then you can kind of say, and it's like, oh, but a lot of this, okay, I'll help you like future proof it. Let's help you future proof, but do this analysis and it'll like both fix a lot of stuff right away. So like capitals and kind of links and all that stuff, it'll have like suggested things, and it'll kind of just bug fix like your entire course of a lot of the accessibility issues, which is great for us. It also has the one that kind of has the best impact on student, I think, is a conversion tool. So it basically allows you to convert like a PDF into like an MP3 or an EPUB, so you can put it on like a screen reader, different things. So that's really, really nice. If, say, for example, you have like an assessment brief, and assuming like it's all sort of there's no inaccessible tables or anything like that, which is a big if, I guess. Like basically it'll convert that to like an audio format, so you can kind of plug that in, and then you can download it and listen to it on your phone if you kind of don't want to, if you kind of find your mind like drifting halfway through like 3 pages of rubrics and assessment briefs and stuff. Like, it's really good for those sort of things. So that would be kind of the one. I think, like, I would agree with William in terms of the immersive reader. First time I show people immersive reader, their mind is blown completely. Mine was too, I'll be honest. Like, I'd never heard it before I started working in the space. I also think the translation tool is massively underutilized. And everyone has, like, I think, like, if like every lecture had a sort of little 2 minute. By the way, if you're not a native English speaker and you speak Portuguese or French or Ukrainian or Parsi or whatever, you can just translate this whole document into Portuguese, and then if you have questions, you can sort them out. Because when I lived in Spain, it was always difficult, and I would have pretty good Spanish, but you're always like that half step behind, and maybe someone says it in a way that doesn't exactly fit. So I guess it's really, I find like those two things are a really good way of sort of equalizing the classroom, because everyone can come up with good questions in their own language, and it's not always absolutely perfect, but it's pretty close. Sorry, someone just said, good tool to convert text into easy reading. I'm not really sure what that means. Is that, like, do you mean an audio, Irene? But let's see.
She might answer you there. I know
I-
there's been.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
unmute myself. Into easy reading for people who have maybe less understanding, intellectual disabilities or learning disabilities.
Do you mean like kind of simple, like plain English?
Yeah, kind of to make the sentences a bit more understandable, maybe take more words. Well, simpler English as such.
Maybe there's an AI. Maybe AI is probably the best tool for that. Yeah, Danielle's just said it there. So you might have, like, you could just like have a document maybe that has a lot of jargon and industry,
Yeah.
or some, like, a legal document, for example. It's got a lot of kind of that, just it's not spelled out plainly, and maybe you could say, could you create a simpler version of this document?
Yeah, I've tried with ChatGPT. It didn't change much in it, but I might have to just work a bit harder on it.
The
Maybe.
Grammarly Go feature in Grammarly Premium would do something similar to that. It can like rephrase and make things simpler. You can set your audience target in the Grammarly settings to be like, so it'll kind of analyze your work, and if it's a very academic text, it will say, okay, this is for an academic audience, but then you can set it to pitch it to a different audience, and then it'll give you lots of suggestions to do it. It would be a much more manual process for most of it, but it can do something similar to that. And I haven't experimented too much with the Grammarly Go thing, because it's kind of it's not offered to students here, even though I have access to it because I'm the admin of our Grammarly account, so I'll take that as a perk. But it's basically like a built-in ChatGPT into Grammarly, so it can do something similar to what you're asking, I think.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, I should explore a bit more around that one. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for it's lovely to have the technologies kind of listed. And just not really a plug, but something that's very helpful is the AT Hive, which is kind of a database of available assistive technology. So you can filter by kind of what you're looking for, what system you have, and it'll list the technologies that are available for you. I'm sure there's other things that are kind of similar that help you find what might work or what's something that might help what you're looking for. But just kind of moving to our next question. Now we're moving away from kind of current day and looking into the future. So just wondering, kind of as specialists in the area, what do you think AT will look like maybe in a few years? And then we might ask about maybe 10 years time. And then how do you imagine the far, far future, maybe 50 years from now, if we're still around, first of all, but how do you imagine kind of AT looking in a long time away? So first a short question and then a long term. Might start with William this time.
I suppose I think the two biggest things in the immediate term are we're going to see a lot of AI just crammed into everything over the next couple of years while it kind of hits equilibrium and settles down a bit. I think that's going to cause some challenges. I think, I spoke glowingly about Grammarly Go a second ago. I wish they'd never put it in there, because now that means we have to fight and justify keeping Grammarly harder than we would have to if they hadn't integrated Grammarly or hadn't integrated AI. I think I think there are going to be a lot of AI tools, like especially even for visually impaired people. There are like the Celeste glasses and the Envision glasses are now all building in AI and stuff like that into them. I think there's huge potential there for what that sort of stuff can do in terms of like real-time scene description, grabbing notes from boards and from whiteboards and stuff like that. I think between that and hopefully more mainstreaming of stuff like Immersive Reader and different AT into mainstream devices, yeah, I think the next 5 or 10 years are going to be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be exciting to see what happens. Might move you on to Patrick.
Yeah, no,
It's a hard question. I
it
know.
is, yeah, it is a tricky question. All right. I don't know. I think in terms of like we're seeing a lot of some of the issues with, I think maybe a silver lining that often kind of gets lost in this, particularly around assessment and academic integrity, which is a big worry in terms of AI. I think sort of the silver lining for that, and maybe I'm dodging your question slightly, is that it might actually force people to come up with better assessments, because like I find particularly with UDL and accessibility and assessments is like the one thing where like people feel really kind of, it's very hard to kind of change, because like that's where a lot of, it's very sort of ingrained, whereas this can kind of like it's a lot easier to kind of get people to not do essays anymore, because they kind of think, oh, but someone can just create an essay in AI, and there's a lot of stuff about like the death of the college essay. So I think like kind of one of the benefits is that it might come up with like, it might force people to come up with more innovative assessments that better sort of measure like whatever skills you're teaching, and like kind of better prepare you for the workplace and stuff. In terms of the future, I'd say like there'd be a lot more kind of training in terms of prompts, how to use prompts. A little bit like there's more training around like media literacy, like kind of we don't have to, if it comes to RTE or whatever, like it's not, you should always kind of look at things like from a critical eye, I think. And then in terms of 50 years, I'm not really sure, to be completely honest. I think we have to kind of find a difference between how do you kind of keep sort of the original thinking, but like how can you use the good bits of AI to sort of get rid of a lot of like the grunt work, for those sort of things, which is positive. And I guess it's kind of a mix between that. You don't want everything to be AI generated, because then it gets really, really stale. So I think we have to try and find a nice balance, which is tricky, and it's a very evasive answer. Sorry, I'm not really...
No, it makes sense. I know it, like no one really knows what it's going to be like, or no one has. If we'd have gone 50 years back from now and said, what would 50 years look like? I don't think anyone could have predicted where we're at today. So even 5 years ago, just the rate at which things are changing is wild. So I know I kind of gave you a really hard question asking about what it'll be like in 50 years, but thanks for trying. Move over to Carol now. Maybe you can enlighten us with your answer, Carol.
Well, with the 50 years, I'll go backwards if you don't mind, Erica. I'm an awful lot older than anyone else here, and my first, it's a while since I celebrated my 50th. My first experience of seeing a computer was in my first week in UCC, where I was designed as part of my first degree in psychology. I had to learn how to program in BASIC, and I sat in front of this, what now would be referred to as an integrated computer, where the CPU of the computer I was using to go over the whole room of the room next door to where we were. That's back in the early 80s, okay? I can remember, if we want to really go back, I can remember my grandmother getting her first fridge. I'm a bit of a fossil as far as some of the other people here are concerned, but I do see AI in the short term really taking over hugely. It already has. We already have ETB learners and university learners, some of who have used AI for their assignments and some who have not. But with the UD Charter starting and heading in now for us, certainly in ETBs or ETBs in September, I think that's going to be huge. Everything isn't going to be done straight away, but we're really going to have to put a huge amount of time and effort into providing as much as we can for everybody. And I think how in the short term, in the first 5 years, we're going to be doing an awful lot of work trying to set that up and trying to do that in tandem with keeping pace with where AI is going to send us, because it is going to send us places we have no idea where they are. But outside of that, in 50 years, good luck. I wish you all well. I won't still be around when that comes. And perhaps that's not a bad thing. But we have come so far in such a fast time. Again, to me, it's only a blip. I shudder to think what would happen in 50 years' time and what human beings will be like. I go to my local petrol station now, and if I happen to hand the guy paper money, he puts it into a slot, presses a button, and the machine gives out the change. So, where are we going to be in education? My brain can't even go there. Sorry.
No, it's interesting to think about, and like just the speed at which it's changing. I know we keep talking about it, but it's alarming and interesting to see what's next. I actually think Tom might be here again, the ever elusive Tom. Are you there, Tom?
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yay, Tom,
Oh
you
my
made it.
goodness. Sorry, I had my laptop just crashed on me and I had to change to a desktop.
You're fine. We're kind of on the future question, Tom. So
Yeah.
we've been talking about how hard it is to predict the future, actually, of what AT will look like, but maybe you have some ideas or maybe some insights as to what you think. Maybe first, kind of the short future. So in 2 years' time, what'll AT look like? And then in 50 years' time, maybe if you have any ideas.
I suppose AT, I can imagine it really, with all of the, Microsoft and Gemini having their all their big announcements this week. That's just going to progress, I think, into just it's amazing kind of what could be down the road. A bit scary and a bit, exciting as well as to how all of these artificial intelligence programs will help with students and help with disabilities. But I guess as well, like, I'm, Elon Musk, not a big fan of his, but that chip he was able to, they had a volunteer with the chip. He was, I think, a quadriplegic, I think, in America. And, that chip, no, it stopped working, but he was able to do some minimal controls through this chip to some motorized arms and this kind of thing. I mean, we're kind of only at the very beginning of it, but yeah, I was listening to it all. So 50 years, who knows? I mean, I just don't know. It's impossible to imagine what it's going to be like. I'm afraid I was racking my brains this morning as to exactly what 50 years would look like, but
I know it's a bit of a trick question, really.
it is. I mean,
no answer.
I was watching the Gemini, the Google I/O on Tuesday with Gemini, and they were showing their students being given a one-to-one mentoring program. Basically like going over, I think, trying to explain gravity, and there was this AI was just speaking back and forth, and it was quite sobering to see it's come along that quickly in just a few years. So, he was the kid was asking about gravity, but the kid wasn't fully following it. I think his parent was there as well, but he was asked, well, can you explain it in the form of a basketball game? And, this AI was immediately able to adjust, giving us examples as a basketball game. And, you're going to get this, one-to-one mentoring for kids. I don't know, sky's the limit. It's hard to know what it's going to be. It's either going to be terrible or brilliant. It's one of the two.
Yep, that's true. And we're glad you made it, Tom. So
Thank you. Sorry about all that.
No, you're fine. I see Patrick with his hand up there.
No, just Carol kind of just reminded me of just that was very really interesting. But I just kind of maybe even think of like, and I think you might have mentioned just like even the last 4 years, like since COVID, there's been such a like a hyper speed acceleration in technology, which has been great in a lot of ways. That like we can just sort of work from home. I remember like right after kind of clean it when we were first able to kind of go to gigs and concerts and things. I went to like a kind of a podcast recording, kind of it was like a show for a sport podcast I listened to. We were chatting to people outside and they were like, yeah, I can just like work now and I can get all my work done for 1 o'clock and then I can go for drinks afterwards and no one's anyone the wiser. And I was just like, wow, like the whole thing has changed. It's kind of bad. And then like even just I was at the head conference and I was listening to Dara talk about like the research that AHEAD have done in relation to like no one wants to go back to fully in the office and no one wants to go back, especially teaching, like no one wants to go back to like fully online. They kind of want like a hybrid mix. And I think maybe that's being forgotten a little bit as well, that like like I think teaching in a lot of cases is better one person to person, but when we also consider stuff like the housing crisis, and we have a lot of students who commute long distances in every college and every ETB, that if you have say an engineering lecture and you do like 4 days where you have to be in college, maybe there's one day, like I know a lot of students will be kind of annoyed when it's just like a PowerPoint. It's like, why couldn't you have done that on Zoom? And like we're looking at and something called like learning glasses. Like it's a little bit like a kind of CSI Miami type setup where like you're kind of drawing and putting things in. It's sort of like a see-through board and you kind of draw on it and then it flips the screen. So it's kind of good in terms of accessibility where like you can kind of explain where you're coming at and then like you can kind of draw and then like people are kind of seeing it. You kind of maintain like lip reading and eye contact, and there's a lot of kind of research around like kind of being able to kind of maintain all those human micro interactions. But like we're looking at like a new kind of smart board where basically you can kind of like sort of you can plug in your computer and then pull in the slides and draw on your slides. And I don't know, like that's kind of mad even when you think like 5 years ago, the idea of like someone from working from home was like some weirdo. Like it's not, and now everyone does it, and it's just sort of we had to kind of accelerate it, and like everyone had to do it, otherwise it wasn't going to happen, sort of thing. It was just it's very strange. Like even the last 5 years, it's kind of insane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I know. Sylvia, I haven't let you answer this one yet. You might have a solution. You might know what's going to happen in 50 years.
I don't know, do I have a solution, but I think my ideas were very similar to William's. I think the likes of the wearable technology, I think is going to advance big time, especially for visually impaired students. I think like with universal design, assistive technology is going to be integrated big time with mainstream products. So assistive and regular is going to be a blur. I think it's just going to be technology. Hopefully, accessibility will just be built into everything. I'd love to see bots for students that are like peer reviewed, so on every subject, so students can just go to chat box, ask questions and be able to get explanations, but we know the answers that they get are peer reviewed, so that when they learn in subjects that they could get answers that they could stand over, because we know a lot of students struggle when they are studying subjects. Maybe I'm dreaming a bit big there. And the smart environments, I think that's going to change a lot, especially for students with mobilities, because like we all kind of have Alexa now in our homes, to turn on and off lights with security locks. So I think that's going to start coming into our physical environments in libraries and our AT areas and that kind of thing. So I think that'll make our mobility of our public spaces more accessible. And again, AI is going to come into all our products, software products.
Definitely, yeah. I think kind of overarching message is that technologies will be a lot more kind of pervasive and there for everyday things, or, you know, making a cup of
Yeah.
coffee, these kinds of things. They'll just be kind of integrated with everything.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And
And-
unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have. I know we want to go make a coffee that I keep referencing. So thank you so much to our wonderful panel. I think we've gained a whole lot of insights. I know there's not a whole lot of time for questions. I know there's been a lot of questions asked in the chat, and our panel has kind of been working in the background answering a lot of those questions. So thank you so much to our audience and to our panel. We'll be back in a short 10 minutes at 11 o'clock. Where we're going to have kind of a few tips and tricks about how to use some of these assistive technologies, followed by a great session from our NTutor Gen AI champions. So thank you so much once again to our wonderful panel. And we'll see you at 11 o'clock.
Thank you.